In this ambitious, groundbreaking game, you have the honor of controlling the first great video game hero, the Dot. As the Dot, you are on an epic quest to retrieve the enchanted chalice that has been stolen by an evil magician and hidden somewhere in the kingdom. In order to achieve this goal, you must travel to far-off lands, find your way through seemingly never-ending mazes, and fend off fearsome duck dragons. There are 3 different levels to tackle, starting with what is essentially a tutorial level, followed by 2 increasingly difficult journeys. As your first adventure begins, you find yourself standing outside your home castle, the gold one, armed only with a key to the front gate. After grabbing the arrow sword that is inside, you are off in search of duck dragons to slay. Lucky for you, they are just a couple of screens away, guarding both a black key and the entrance to the maze. Once you dispatch both of them and have the key, it's time to find your way to the Black Castle, where the enchanted chalice has been hidden. Once you grab it and return it to its rightful place within your castle walls, you are not only greeted with some celebratory sound and color effects, but you are now ready to try your hand at a real quest. The second adventure ramps up the difficulty substantially. There is a much larger world to explore, which includes new kingdoms filled with a variety of items and hazards. The duck dragons return, and they are joined by one of the most annoying creatures ever to inhabit a video game, the bat. The bat not only randomly appears, but also will exchange an on-screen item with a random one. Imagine navigating the obstructed view maze, where you can only see a small portion of the screen, to find the key to the Black Castle, finding your way back to civilization, and to the Black Castle, only to have the bat show up and replace it with a different key. Or worse, you could be running towards a sword, only to have the bat steal it and replace it with a duck dragon. If you are ultimately able to survive the various challenges and retrieve the enchanted chalice once again, you are ready for the third and final adventure. This journey takes place in the same kingdom you just went through. However, the evil magician has randomly hidden items across the landscape. Needless to say, this makes your life much more difficult. In addition to the arrow sword, there are a handful of other items that will aid you in your quest. The bridge will make navigating the maze much easier, as it allows you to climb over any wall you might come across. Plus, it's portable, so once you cross it, you can pick it up and carry it to the next wall you want to scale. Another item is a magnet, which allows you to drag other items behind you. This is incredibly helpful, since you can only carry one item at a time, and also marks one of the earliest examples of a video game character having an inventory. The most valuable thing on your journey, however, is the reset button, as if you are eaten by a dragon or just become lost in a maze. Hitting it will take you back to your castle with everything in its place. Despite being released in 1979, Adventure is still an engaging and challenging title. It's also light years ahead of its time, and should be checked out by anyone interested in seeing the origins of modern adventure RPG games, not to mention trying to find the first video game Easter egg. While the manual is pretty straightforward, the cover artwork is some of the best from the early days of Atari. As this was one of the early releases for the 2600, there was also a Sears Telegames release, which is the slightly rarer version of the game. Even with the slight rarity bump, both versions are still quite common. Being a flagship title, Adventure showed up in multiple catalogs throughout the years, featuring a variation on the cover artwork. And as mentioned in the review, this was the first video game Easter egg, which was the designer's name across the screen. Based on the groundbreaking film Tron, you take control of the title character as he must work his way through 4 floors of danger in an effort to collect various flying items. Doing so will allow Tron to activate the portal to the next level, which is virtually identical to the one you just came from. The playfield layout is simple. There are elevators on either side of the screen, and a gap in the center that must be jumped over. There are 2 random floating objects that are making their way back and forth on each floor that must be gathered by leaping at the precise moment. The collision detection is a bit off, so if you don't hit it just right, you will fly right through it. Once you have the 2 items, you must leap over the center grid to activate the elevators before you can move up to the next floor, and repeat the same thing. There is a special icon on the 3rd level that looks like an arrow, the Solar Sailor, that can't be captured. However, it can be grabbed onto and ridden to the other side of the screen. This can be invaluable if you have some enemies bearing down on you. Speaking of enemies, you will be facing off against mobile boxes that have the same basic shape as the recognizer ship from the movie, although instead of being many stories tall, it's the midget version of it. There are also grid bugs that look like dancing stools that will attack, and in later levels, fast-moving tanks show up to make life difficult. All enemies start on the top floor on the left and snake their way down floor by floor, so you should have some time to collect things before they get close enough to kill you. If you can dodge the enemies long enough to gather all the flying items, the center portal turns blue, and when you jump in, it will rocket you through the top of the screen and into the next level. While on the surface this looks like a simplistic game, in the later levels it can become very challenging. In order to survive those levels, you will have to bounce back and forth between floors, advancing and retreating in order to dodge the fast-moving enemies. The only other thing of note is that even though Tron is a legendary warrior in the movie, in the game he is completely defenseless and has no offensive capabilities. The box for Adventures of Tron is a standard M-Network box with 70% of the front being taken up by the company logo. The artwork in the bottom corner is nice, however, especially for fans of the movie. The manual is basic and straightforward, but does a great job of laying out the game. In addition to the manual, the game popped up in an M-Network catalog. This game was also available in a twin pack with Tron Deadly Discs, which included a controller that was very reminiscent of the arcade game controller. While the individual game is fairly common, the twin pack is much rarer. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to see more Game Encyclopedia videos.